Okay. And welcome to the Rotary Club of Beaumont, the 72nd club founded in the world. We are glad you are here today. To give our invocation, let's see, on the invocation we have Mandy Clayton, Director of Development and Foundation from the Maury Institute of Technology. And after Mandy, we have leading the pledges from John Lee, Business Advisor of Lamar University Small Business Development Center. So Mandy, you have it first, and then John's after that.
If everybody would join me with bowing your heads in prayer. Thank you, Father, for the gift of Rotary and each other. Please bless all of us with the gift of a servant's heart. May we be ever mindful of all those in need. Help us to provide to the hungry, heal the wounds of hatred with our love, comfort those in sorrow, and bring peace to those living in areas of unrest. Through our service, we thank you for all of our gifts. We ask for a special blessing on those who aren't with us today and for our speaker. In your name, amen.
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 Okay, if you could please join me in the pledges to the U.S. flag and the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
For our Texas flag, honor the
Texas flag.
I pledge
allegiance to thee, Texas.
One state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Thank you, Mandy, and John, both of you. You did a great job. Hello. Right now I just see a white flag. I made a white thing here.
He needs to.
Well, am I the only one with just a white?
Oh, Joe, you're not. Okay.
Jackie's screen that's gone wide.
Oh, right. Good go. Let's see here. We had another successful flag project for Flag Day on Sunday, and we thank all those who have served. A special thanks, of course, to our co-chairs, Gary Monca and Pat Anderson. Fantastic, both of y'all, doing a great job. Now, Pat, I think it's your turn. You talk about the next delivery on July the 4th. So, Pat, you have it.
Okay, I kind of stated a little bit ahead of it a while ago, but at July 4th, there's a lot of people, a lot of our regulars who are unable due to being out of town or different things. So we need some new members, some new blood to step up to the plate. And just want to remind you that it's very important that we get these flags out to represent the independence of our country. And also to mention that one that has helped with flags, just to let you know, Rebecca, she's online, but Rebecca and her mom and their family is going to take on a route. So if you'd like to take some of your family members and take on a route, we'd be glad to welcome you because we really do need some help July 4th. We've got a couple of weeks, so be setting everything else you need to do, but set some time aside to come out and put out flags for Rotary. We really appreciate it. And just remember, the funds that we raise support all the different projects. So you may not be able to do some projects and wish you could help in many ways. Well, that early in the morning, you can get up and do flags and go home and fire up the grill and do what you have to do for the rest of Independence Day. And the scouts pick them up. And remember that 1/3 of the funds we raise go to the Boy Scouts, which help them to do the different projects they do. So by putting out flags, you do a whole lot more than just getting up, putting out flags. It goes out to many. So, and for those who have done it, I really appreciate you. And some that can't do it this time, that's okay. There'll be a next time. We won't do this again till 9/11. So we'll give you a little break for a couple of months. Anyway, thank you in advance for helping us with the flag project.
Yeah, and thank you, Pat, for the great job that y'all always do. Let's see, next here we have the past district governor, Chuck Mason, who is going to tell us about a new challenge for End Polio Now. You've got it, Chuck.
Thank you, Joe. We've been having a virtual district conference for the last week and a half. I know several of y'all have made a couple of those sessions. The last one is this coming Monday, and if you look on the district website, would love to have you join us. As part of that, we had someone announced the other day that we have a couple of donors that have offered matching funds to get people in our district to contribute to our polio eradication initiative. Rotary is trying to raise $50 million each year for the last several years on that. If we raise the $50 million, the Gates Foundation is doing $100 million match to that. So it's a very effective fundraising for us. Obviously, because of COVID, this is a rough year to do fundraising for anything. We're actually using a lot of the funds that are raised for polio right now, using the polio workers that have been working for the last couple of years to actually contact people about COVID, help educate people about what they need to do, and also transporting test kits, things like this, in the third world countries where we're mainly working. So anyway, we had a couple of members of our district that offered an additional challenge beyond the match that the Gates Foundation is giving. We've got one that pledged a $50,000 one-to-one match for any additional funds that can't come in through the end of June that are actually sent in to RI by the end of June. Then we had another person who said, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll do a 50% match on that same $50,000. If you add all that up, the $50,000 one-to-one match, the $50,000 half to one match, and then the Gates 2-to-1 match, it ends up being in a 7.5 to 1 match for any funds that you will put into the Rotary eradication. If you put in, $100, that translates to $750. If you'll give $1,000, you'll make me real happy, since I'm the one that is supposedly raising this stuff for Texas. That would be $7,500. And if you want to really go all out, just go all out. Anyway, I really would appreciate your looking at whether you can support the polio initiative. We have done a tremendous amount of work on that. We've gone from when Rotary first got involved in this, about 350,000 cases a year, to less than 200 cases a year for the last 3 or 4 years. So anyway, I would really encourage you to contribute to that. If you need any information about how to do it, you can look on our district website, or you can just call me, might be the easiest way. Anyway, thank you very much. And please consider going to the virtual district conference meeting next Monday night. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chuck. And you're right. And Rotary and ending polio, I am behind that very much also. So we good
That's what he
things way back when. Let's see here. If hey, here's another one, another good one, Chuck. Okay, coming. If you haven't heard, a member of our club is going to be the next governor of our Rotary district, and we are happy and proud of Becky Mason for stepping up to this challenge. Her installation is tomorrow evening, and you can register and attend using Zoom. So Becky, would you like to make a couple of things?
Yes.
Maybe, like up some,
I'm gonna
add
turn
up
yours.
some other things for you?
Chuck, turn it down. Excuse
You
me.
got it, Becky.
Okay. To those of you who have registered, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you on Zoom tomorrow night, and I appreciate your support. And to those of you who put yourself out there to sing on a video all by yourself, just my hat's off to you. It was daunting for a lot of us. And so for the virtual choir, in case you don't know, virtual choir, everyone who wanted to participate in that, then received them, the practice tape, received the music, and then you had to put a earphone in your ear so that you could hear the accompaniment. And so when you're videoing yourself, all you hear is yourself. And if you're not singing the melody, it's kind of not that pleasing, actually. So it was quite a stretch for some of us. And y'all are just great sports. And I have to tell you, just a quick little aside, those of you who remember Jennifer Jones, she came 2 years ago, maybe, for our Women in Rotary, just a delightful, adorable person and personality, you know, just a great personality and so sweet. Anyway, she and her husband decided they couldn't be there that night, but they submitted a video singing, and they are such good sports. They really sound bad, but they are so happy and cute. And so I'm positive that James Hahn, our conductor, will be able to work them in and leave out the bloopers, but it's going to be great. And I think it'll be a lot of fun to see it. And Brad, you were asking about if I had seen it, and I got a text. Is James on this call? I didn't see his name, but anyway, so he said it would be soon. He was just about finished with it. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And so if you haven't registered yet, there's still time, there's still room. And so thank you all so much for your support. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I'll stop talking.
I agree. That's fantastic too. Thank you, Becky. And I'm looking forward to attending your installation tomorrow too. So keep looking forward for it. Let's see, next thing here we got coming up is to introduce our guest speaker in the program today that we have, Assistant U.S. Attorney Randy Fluke. Randy, you have it from here.
Thanks, Joe. Service above self. That's our motto as Rotarians, but that so accurately describes the life work and the heart of our speaker, Dr. Darius, MD, Obstetrics and Gynecology, that I know that is his life's mantra. And he uses his God-given talents, as you'll hear, to serve others, particularly the poor and the underserved in Africa, with no ability to ever repay him in the material sense, that is. Dr. Madge is a graduate of Eastern Oklahoma State College in Wilburton, Oklahoma, and the University of Oklahoma in Norman. He received his medical doctorate at OU Medical School in Norman, and Dr. Madge received his medical training at St. John's Hospital, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and his residency and chief residency served at Charity Service in New Orleans, Louisiana. He earned his board certification in OB-GYN in 1981 and has since that time achieved the status of fellow and diplomat recognized by the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And you almost know him already. You and I are 1 or at most 2 degrees away from knowing him. And here's how. First, he and his bride, Karen, have been married for years and years, and they're the parents of adult kids. They have Dino and Kimberly, and wait for it, his daughter, Gina, is Beaumont's own, the benevolent, smart, strong, and wonderful Gina Crenshaw. And that's how the Flukes came to know him. In fact, Emily and I and our daughter, Erin, will always appreciate that Dr. Madge allowed Erin to go with him to Africa, one of those 48 trips of service above self that Dr. Madge has made in his career of service and providing health care to the underserved. Can you still hear me? Can you? Okay. And so, Erin, over to you to finish the introduction. We have a guest introducer. It's Dr. Erin F. Dunlap, MD, orthopedic surgery resident at the University of Texas Medical Branch, Galveston, who happens to be a 2007 Rotary Scholarship recipient. So, Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin. First, I just want to say thank you again, like my dad just said, for selecting me as a 2007 Rotary Scholarship recipient. It really went to supporting me in my undergraduate education at Texas A&M University, whoop, and then my medical school education at UTMB, which is where I've stayed to complete my residency. I had the great privilege to spend a few weeks with Dr. Madge, traveling with him to Sierra Leone as part of his West Africa Fistula Foundation. I will never forget walking to the ward at the hospital for the first time that he had established for his patients, and just hearing singing. As soon as we opened the doors, all of these women surrounded Dr. Maggi and just continued singing and dancing, and we're so excited to see him. We're so grateful for everything that he had done and was going to do for them. It was truly inspirational. Dr. Maggi is one of the most selfless people I've met. He is truly a selfless servant, and I am very grateful to call him one of my mentors.
Over to you, Dr. Madge. And I thought he was on, Jackie.
Am I on now?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for all those accolades, but I feel so blessed that I'm able to do this. And it's really, really rewarding to see Dr. Erin Fluke. I mean, my goodness, in 2013, she accompanied us. And now to see that she's going to be an orthopedic surgeon, and it is so, so wonderful to see her climb that ladder and give back. So I really appreciate this. Jackie, do I need to share the screen on this? Okay.
Yes, sir. If you'll hit share your screen and then pull up that PowerPoint.
Okay. It said host disabled participant screen sharing.
Let's try again.
Let me push. I lose somebody.
Share the screen. Did you try again?
Oh, there we are. Okay, great. Okay, you'll have to excuse me. I'm still sort of new at this Zoom. Okay, first of all, I'd like to, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Do you want me to pull it up, Doctor?
I have it. Do you see it now?
No, not yet.
You don't see it, okay. I just pulled it up.
I think you need to click share screen again.
Okay, push this. Okay. And share, okay.
Here it comes. Okay, great.
You have it now?
Yeah.
Yes, now we're seeing you. You want to do from the beginning there.
There we are. Okay, I really appreciate it. I started going to Sierra Leone in 2002. I have quite a few slides and I'm going to try to go through this real fast. I understand that y'all are great sponsors of Sierra Leone, and I feel extremely blessed that I'm able to go over there. During my training, a gentleman at Charity Hospital that unfortunately has passed away now. He had gone to Africa in the 70s to do obstetrical fistula, and I hadn't even heard of obstetrical fistula. Most people in the States do not know it because it doesn't exist here. And so I was very interested, so I'm going to start going through these slides pretty quick. And this basically has been my mantra. Hopefully that I am kind to the needy and honor God through that, through Proverbs 14:31. And again, most of you are probably aware, since you're sponsoring a program there, from my understanding, in Sierra Leone. This is where I started. I initially went to Ghana in 2001 4 times, but I was always interested in obstetrical fistula. So I was told that go to Sierra Leone. So I jumped on a plane after visiting with the lady and went to Sierra Leone with her. And this was right after the war. They had the Civil War there from 1991 to early 2002. And she was fortunate enough to get me over there in November of 2002. And as you see, Sierra Leone is about the size of South Carolina, and to the north and east is Guinea, and to the southeast is Liberia. And we'll get back into some of that in just a minute. And here we are, a larger picture of Sierra Leone. It's about the size of South Carolina. It has about 5.5 million people. And during the war, from Liberia, Charles Taylor and Gaddafi from Libya and the soldier from Sierra Leone sort of instigated this war, from all understandings. And they started from Liberia and they went in and just decimated the entire country. They had about 40 or 50,000 rebels, and they started from the east. Can you see my pointer on the screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Around Kenema, they came through there and they just went straight through, and they went all these years, and they went in decimating the schools, the churches, the medical facilities, and just killed thousands and thousands of people. And I'm sure some of you have seen Blood Diamond. And so they actually would amputate arms and legs. And they ended up in Freetown. And fortunately, the war ended in early 2002. It's a very beautiful country, as you see. It's on the Atlantic Ocean. It's just gorgeous. This is around Freetown. And of course, it's known for its diamonds. It's very highly populated in the cities. It was after the war because a lot of the people were really pushed into the cities. Here's a mosque. About 70% are Muslim, about 15 to 20% are Christians, and the others are animists. And as you see, it's just really plush. Here's the mud huts with the thatch roofs. But this is what Sierra Leone's about. These people are so pleasant. They're so just beautiful and hardworking, and very, very passy type personalities, very honestly. I mean, they were just run over by these thugs. This is a picture of the palm oil that they manufacture a lot over there. And here, obviously, this was after the war. This is how they make their living, through subsistence farming. Here they are getting water out of the ocean, out of the river. They have a few wells, not that many. They do now, but they didn't when I first went in 2002. They're generally very, very happy type people. Here they had a shortage of gas. And here this young lady's carrying firewood. And you saw this all over. Here was the feeding center after the war that they established. And I took all of these pictures myself, most all of them, probably 98% of them. And fortunately, when 2002, when I went, I was able to go through this amputee camp. And this is what you saw. And I visited with these people personally. And they said these rebels would come in and said, you want a long sleeve or you want a short sleeve? If you wanted a long sleeve, they would amputate here. If you wanted a short sleeve, then amputate above the elbow. And this lady said they just came in and she gave a terrible, terrible story. I mean, it was just so tragic. And then here again, they'd even amputate the ears and even the noses. There's so many amputees actually have a soccer team there, an amputee soccer team. This was one of the first facilities that I saw. This was Princess Christian Maternity Hospital. This was in Sierra Leone, in Freetown, which is the capital. And I mean, as you see, no lights, no water, just devastation. Here's the hospital, just tragic, very, very poor. This is our sterilization. They had kerosene here, and you would use kerosene to light your fire for your sterilization. And of course, when I first got there, you didn't have any supplies, hardly at all. Here are glove racks. They would actually wash these gloves, turn them inside out, treat them with talcum powder, and reuse them. This is in Bow, and I didn't show you that, but this was the second largest city in Freetown, and it was on the eastern border, over southeastern border in Sierra Leone. It's the second largest city. This is the Bow Government Hospital. This is what it looked like in 2002, just devastated. Again, very rarely you would have lights and no running water. A lot of times we had to use a generator there. The first 5 years I was in Bow, and I was at that Princess Christian Hospital, but after in 2008, I moved up to Bow, and this is what we had to do. We had to have generator. And of course, as you see, you have this really sophisticated electrical box here, and I'm sure the coating might fail there in the States. This was one of the wards that we had. This was a gynecological ward, about 16 beds in here. No lights, hardly, air conditioning, none, water. A lot of times we had to use 2 operating rooms, and fortunately we were able to have lights, as you saw there. I don't know why this is going so fast. Let's see. Let me see if I can move this back. I don't know why it's going so fast. Here we are. When I first got there, the maternal mortality rate was the poorest in the world. It was the worst in the world. There were reported over 2,100 deaths per 100,000 births. And it's reported that 1 out of 8 women would die from childbirth in Sierra Leone. And it was a result of the devastation of the countryside from the rebels. The infant mortality rate was 1 out of 3 before the age of 5 would die. And these were the most common causes: malaria, pneumonia, typhoid, and meningitis. And this you can treat for less than $5. And so I was interested primarily in the obstetrical fistula, and I'll go over what this is. And again, in the 70s, when I trained at Charity, I'd never even heard of it until this Dr. Robertson informed me about it. obstetrical fistula is what we call a vesical vaginal fistula. What it is, it's an abnormal communication between the bladder and the vagina. And what happens is these women will be in labor for days on. I mean, I had several women, we did a study on the first 600 or so we saw, and the average length of the labor was around 6 days, the average length they were in labor. And the reason they were in labor so long is they didn't have the facilities, or they didn't have access to a cesarean because of all the devastation of the countryside. And it's thought to be what we call 3 obstructions. The first obstruction is in the village. And what happens is these ladies will be kept in the village by what we call TBAs, or traditional birth attendants. And these traditional birth attendants, I do not know why this is going backwards. The traditional birth attendants would keep them in the village in hopes that they would pay them. And so they would keep them there sometimes several days. And once they found out they couldn't deliver, well, then they would say, you need to go someplace. So the next obstruction is, how do you get someplace? You didn't have cars, you didn't have any ways to get there except walk. You might have to go by boat, you might have to go by hammock, and you may end up spending 2 or 3 days trying to get to a facility. I don't know what happened to my pointer here. Sorry about all this. As you see right here, here's the pubic bone, here's the tailbone, of course the vagina, the uterus, and here's the bladder. What happens is baby gets stuck in this pelvis. And that baby will push, the head will push against the bladder and the rectum. And sometimes it will be stuck there 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days. As a result, this tissue dies off right between the vagina and the bladder. And even about 4 or 6%, it will die off between the vagina and the rectum. And these women have uncontrollable urine, just pours out uncontrollably. They have no control over that. Same thing with feces. The stool will just pour out. And so they are actually ostracized. They're shunned from their villages because they've been told that the spirits caused it, or that they have been, the witches caused it. And this is what they come in like. They come in and they have urine running down their leg. And when I first got there, this was in the stairwell of that Princess Christian Maternity Hospital. I do not know what's wrong with this thing here. Let me get back here. And there were literally hundreds of women lined up because they were having this problem. And so we started seeing them and doing surgery on them. And here they are, they're always wet, continuously wet, 24/7. And so they are shunned from the villages. They're ostracized, they're rejected, they're outcast, they're hopeless. And even some commit suicide because they've had this for years and years and years. This is a patient that we had, and these were a group of patients that were gathered together, and we were driving up to pick them up to bring them down to the hospital to operate on them. There were so many, there were 2 to a bed. And here they are. This is their demeanor. I mean, they're just so saddened, they're so distraught. But the neat thing is when they come together, they all have the same problem, so they feel like they're not by themselves. So the old saying is, misery loves company. But they are very depressed. This is Yada. She weighed 65 pounds because she was shunned and they wouldn't feed her. And she couldn't even stand up when she first came in. We would normally feed these women. Yada, we had to keep her on the ward about 6 months to feed her, to get her nourishment up, because we always wanted to feed them and get them so we could operate on them, because we were finding out initially that their malnourishment was so bad, they were very difficult to heal. This is the ward that we had up in Bow. We had about 50 patients to our ward up there. We'd feed them 3 meals a day. And when they're all together, they're so happy. Again, I mean, they would tell us stories that it would just be how terrible it was for them. And here, as Dr. Fluke said, or Aaron said, when you walk in, they're so happy to see you because at least they think they have hope that you might be able to repair their problem. Here they are again. And here's one of our nurses, Jack. She's reading scripture to them. And here's a gentleman that came to volunteer. Now, this lady right here, she'd make T.D. Jakes look like a stepchild. She could really preach to them. Here they are praying again. Very sad. My wife, she's giving them a pedicure. And she would take these little alcohol sponges and they were just filthy because what they really love to have pedicures. They had other maladies. They would have foot drop because they would be in labor so long. This nerve that goes here, the peroneal nerve, would be damaged from them being in labor. And we could tell you stories and stories how they were mistreated while they were in labor. In fact, we have a YouTube that these ladies we filmed, and they actually did the film themselves and showed on our YouTube how they were treated in labor because they couldn't deliver. This is Mary Alma. She was from the Fula tribe, which is up north, and she was in labor 15 days. She had so much damage in the vaginal and rectal area that we could not repair her. She was irreparable. This is Umahala Ba. She's a little short lady, as you will see. She was a sheep herder way up north, and she couldn't speak the language, but she heard that we did this surgery, so she came down. Grandma, she had it for over 50 years. She had been wet. And fortunately, after we got her dry, she felt in her bed and said, "Oh my God, I'm dry." Of course, you know, we have electronic records over there, and this was our operating permit. And this is the electronic record here, I'm being facetious. The nurses, most of these women, you'd ask them how old they were. They didn't know how old they were. They didn't know what they were doing. And they obviously couldn't read or write. So the nurses would take an ink pen and put it on their thumb, and then we would get the permission to operate on them. And here, these women right here, these 4 women were pre-operative patients, and they would help carry the instruments over to the operating room when we would operate on them. And here we are having them in. This young lady, JoJo, she used to be a fistula patient, but then she stayed on as a nurse's aide. She was always a character. And here we are. We generally use spinal block anesthesia because we didn't have oxygen, and we couldn't give them general anesthetic and be safe. So 99% of the time we used spinal block anesthesia, saddle blocks. Here again, we were in the operating room. Here again, we were able to get a headlight. That really helped. They had a lot of other abnormalities. I mean, this lady had a large bladder stone. So you remove the bladder stone, you have to make an incision in the bladder and then later come back and repair her. And after you operated on them, they were different people. Here they have their catheters in their bladder. This lady loved to put her little her bag in the paint bucket. And then here we have a patient, after we removed the catheter, if she was dry, she was saying bye-bye to her catheter. We always had a discharge ceremony. This was when I was down in Freetown, and we would buy them a dress or sew them a dress. We had a seamstress, Abigail, and they would sing and dance. And and this is, of all things, this is Yada. This is the lady you saw before. This was 6 months afterwards. I mean, she came back and she was so happy. Here she was before, here she is now. and she would send us patients. She was a different person. Then here they are in their dresses. They're so happy because they're dry and have a new life. And this is the ultimate goal, is to have a healthy mother and a healthy baby. Do I have any more, have some more time, or I'm okay?
You're good. You're good, doctor.
Am I okay? Have some time?
Yes, you do.
Okay, just cut me off when I need to stop. This is Jabu. We had repaired her fistula, and she came in and brought us palm oil, chicken, pineapple, and mango. And the nurses says, "Doctor, if you don't take this, you're going to hurt her feelings." She was so happy she was dry. This was a lady up at Bow. You might see here, she's had her breast removed. When I first got there, you don't even have a pathological evaluation. They have to determine whether they think it's cancer or not. It's really pathetic. It's so poor over there. This was a leprosarium. When I first got there, I went and saw this leprosarium. It's still there. They have about 500 to 700 leprosy cases a year. Here's people that have leprosy. This young man had been there since he was 2. His family dropped him off and left him at this leprosarium. He was about 12 to 13, if I remember correctly. Here's another one, the leprosy. Still exists today. This lady had had a criminal abortion. She came in septic shock. She was out of it. Blood pressure was low. Temperature was high. I mean, she was almost dead. But they have a lot of criminal abortions over there. But she fortunately survived. We operated on her. Here's a little girl that there's a lot of malnourishment. And of course, we have very sophisticated electronic scales, as you see, in a modern potty. This little girl had been on the ward 4 days, and her dad came and says, "Can you see my daughter?" And because they didn't have money, and you have to have money to have things done there. And so we operated on her. She had typhoid fever. And of all things, that's what Abraham Lincoln's son died from. And it's contaminated water, and the bacteria gets in their bowel and perforates their bowel. Their little tummies are swollen. You have to go in and repair that. That's the same little girl. This little girl had a ruptured appendix. This was a little boy that had typhoid. Look how malnourished they are. This lady had typhoid. She was really sick. Lassa fevers is endemic to that area. There's a lot. When I was there one time, a pregnant lady came in with a high fever. She was seen by Doctors Without Borders. The doctor, the nurse, the scrub tech, and the patient, all 4 died within 48 hours from Lassa fever. It's very similar to Ebola. It doesn't have quite the mortality rate, but it's very, very dangerous. The little boy had an amputation. A lot of voodoo, a lot of witchcraft. This lady, I saw it at the Bow Government Hospital, and she had gone to see the witch doctor. And here he slit her back of her feet in order to drain that. She probably had what we call nephrotic syndrome. This little girl had polio. They put her in hot coals. She had burns all over. This is the witchcraft that still exists today in the voodoo. I guess that's about it. I better quit and see if there's any questions. The treatment for, obviously, obstetrical fistula is prevention. That's the key. These people did not have access. These women did not have access to C-sections. Unfortunately, there was the first ever obstetrical fistula hospital was reportedly in New York City in the 1850s. And of course, it was closed down in the late 1800s because women do have access to cesareans. So the big key is to prevent all of this. Any questions whatsoever? I've skipped a lot of things, but I thought I was sort of short on time.
This is Chuck Mason. You mentioned you had gone there first in 2002, 3, something like that. Have you seen any improvements in Sierra Leone since then, or is this still pretty much the way it is as far as hospitalization and things?
Very honestly, in 2012 and 13, in early 14, I started seeing a lot of improvement, and then Ebola hit. And I mean, it really knocked them back. It really did. I mean, they were starting to have improvement there. When I first got there in 2002, they only had 5 medical students in the medical school. Now they have, or when I left there in 17, 18, they had around 35 or 40 medical students. But unfortunately, a lot of them were moving on out, they're leaving the country because they couldn't, because of the poverty. But Ebola really knocked them back. Now their new leadership, I've met him, President Bill. He seems to be, and his wife, I met both of them, and they seem to really be trying to make a difference. But it's slow. It's very slow. And the sad thing, there's 2 things. One, China was coming in big time and just raping those people. I mean, they would come in and buy up the fisheries. They would buy the Minister of Fisheries, and then they came in and would siphon off all the iron ore, the bauxite, the rutile. They put in a railroad, and there was so much corruption. There's still a lot of corruption, but I think there's some light at the end of the tunnel. I really do. And obviously, technology has improved so much. It's making a lot of people a lot more aware of what's going on, where before they didn't have it. Very good question. The bottom line, I think it's improving.
Who are some of the organizations that work there that, you know, would benefit by donations?
Pardon me?
Who are the organizations, or what are the organizations there that work in Sierra Leone that, you know, might need help with funding?
Well, what's sad is there are a lot of the what I call the good organizations wouldn't go in because of so much corruption. And there again, like the UNFPA, and I mean, I could go over many of them, are crooked as a barrel of snakes. I mean, they're just, it's just, that was my major frustration was a lot of situations like that. Now Doctors Without Borders is an excellent organization, but they go in as an emergency type situation rather than sort of trying to improve. I mean, they improve things, but then they just go in as a Band-Aid, and they're a very, very good organization. And a lot of people get frustrated because, again, you have these elections, and as you've probably read about all that in Sierra Leone, it just turns over and over. But
and then, Dr. Madge, you founded the West Africa Fistula Foundation back in 2004. Is that still an ongoing nonprofit charity?
it is and it isn't. In about a year and a half to 2 years ago, we had some violence over there, and it got pretty bad. And then with the election and all that, things changed a lot. And so I haven't actively been there and doing surgeries for about a year and a half. And I generally go 3 to 4 times a year, but it's tough. It's really tough. It really is. I mean, I'm being very evasive on that question, but it's the leadership I think is improving, and I'm just hopeful. But the people are so wonderful. I mean, they're great people. I mean, I still keep in contact with them. We still have patients that we support. You know, we send them money for food, and especially during COVID, we do that. But we're sort of in a holding pattern, very, very honestly, right now.
And I had not from you. I didn't hear this from you, but from somebody else. I heard that you'd written a book about your service, and that yeah, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I wrote a book a couple of years ago.
Is that something that somebody that's in? What's the name of the book? And does Gina have any of those? For heaven's sake.
The name of it's Basta. I'm from an Italian background, and my grandfather came to Oklahoma in 1905 from Italy to work in the coal mines. And he used to tell my dad, Basta, enough, enough.
Yeah.
You can only sleep in one bed. Your stomach can only hold so much. You can only wear one pair of shoes at a time. So I sort of took that and did a spin-off, especially when you go to Sierra Leone. I mean, it really opens your eyes when these people do not have clean water, they do not have food, obviously do not have health care, and it'll get your attention. It really does. It makes you very, very thankful for what we have here.
Dr. Maggi, would you stay along even beyond the length so far of what we've been, information that you've been giving? Maybe some others might want to say or get some other information. Would you be willing to stay beyond where we are?
Oh, yes, sir.
Timeless? Okay.
Dr. Mesh, can you stop sharing your screen now?
Okay. Let's see how I do that. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I'll first, while I'm here, I'm glad that you would be willing to stay, but I also want to thank you right now with everybody here, Dr. Mage, for presenting such an interesting and informative program today. To express our appreciation to you for your service as our speaker, we will make a donation in your name to the Rotary International End Polio Now campaign. Thank you so much for all that you have said, and I'm glad that you could stay a little bit more, Dr. Madge.
Very kind of you.
Have a couple things to come now through. Have a few reminders. If you'd like to be part of the flag project on Independence Day, please let Pat Anderson or Gary Montfort let them know that you would be willing to help. The board of directors will meet next Tuesday, again using Zoom. If you would like to attend, please let Jackie know so that she can let you the link to join the meeting for you. And remember the polio challenge that Chuck spoke about. So let's make your donation for that before June the 30th for us. And I have two more things, a couple of things here. First off, I want to go back to Ted. And Ted Moore, you still there? Ted, you know, when you left a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to just kind of say a few things for you. And right now, I just want you to, I guess before we close, we want to send a big congratulations to the past president there, Ted Moore. Ted has been a member of the club since January of 1993. And held numerous positions and was president in 2016, 2017. Though you still have the looks of the youngsters from I look at your face there, and has retired and is joining us today from this new retirement home. And is it San Marcos that you have, Ted?
Yes.
Okay. And we wish you much happiness in retirement, Ted. And you always can come here anytime you want on one of our meetings and have some more fun and some more good. Thank you so much for that, Ted. We are, let's see, the next week will be our final meeting of the Rotary year, and I hope that you will join us as we recognize everyone who helped to make the 2019-2020 successful year. Now remember, if somebody wants to stay with the doctor, we'd be glad to do that. It's been very interesting. So let's now please turn on your microphone and let's recite the 4-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. First,
is it
the truth?
Second,
is it
fair to all concerned?
Third,
Build goodwill and better friendship.
And fourth, will it be beneficial
to all concerned?
Right. So have a good week and go out and connect the world. So those who want to stay some more, feel free to do. There's some interesting more stuff that we might hear with the doctor.
Okay. Dr. Madge, thank you very much. Erin's computer died, so she dropped off right at the very end, and she told me to tell you thank you again, and it was great seeing you. And that's what I say too. I've got to run now, but thank you, sir, and thank you for being a great mentor to Erin.
Thank you.
Right. It was
Okay.
great. Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Thank you, Ram.
Madge, there was one question here that we didn't get to. A person asked, in layman's terms, can you explain how you make the surgical repairs of the fistula? Do you use mesh or something?
99% of the time I can do it vaginally. 99%. We've done over 1,600 of these surgeries, and we had about an 85 to 87% success rate. Unfortunately, there are a lot of these women that have so much damage they're irreparable. The only thing you can do, and we've done some of these, is what we call a urinary diversion, and you do that abdominally. But it takes a lot of time and post-operative care and explanation before you do that. But we very rarely use mesh. Mesh wouldn't help in this particular instance, to answer the question. But we can. It's just, when I have other doctors come, they just can't believe the amount of damage that's done with the, what we call the necrosis, with the dying of the tissue, but with the head being so impacted. I mean, 99.5% of the time, the baby's dead when you're there. I mean, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days in labor when it's dead, and it's really sad. But it's getting better. I mean, that's definitely getting better. I mean, we were able to go what they call the jingles. We would actually go on the airway, and we'd go way up country and educate. You know, if you think you're going to have trouble, you need to go where you can have access to care. The problem was, even if they would go to a facility, this was early in the 2000s. You didn't have, if you went to a healthcare facility, they wouldn't have access to a C-section because they didn't have any supplies or anything. And it's very tough to sort of stomach that. But it's improved. That part definitely is improved. That part is really definitely improved. Just takes time, unfortunately.
Well, there's lots of great comments here that people enjoyed. Enjoyed is an unusual word to use, I guess, but we enjoyed hearing you and hearing the story.
Well,
and a lot of people sending good wishes your way and for continued good work.
Well, thank you very much. I went pretty fast and I could have gone into a lot more detail and a lot more stories, but the people, the key is these people are so happy. So happy.
You did a great job, though. I mean it.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it, Doctor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'll leave now. Thank you very much.
Sorry you had a little trouble getting in.
Oh, that's no,
next time we'll know, huh?
We made it. That's the worst problem we have. We're in good shape.
That's right. You're among friends.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh. Well, if you give something to Larry, Larry left, so I think he's coming for something.
He's coming to your house, so
yes,
you better.
so let me get down. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, Lynn.
All right. Bye, Lynn. Everybody good?
Okay, I'm out. I'm going, waiting for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody else good?